Imagine standing by a mountain stream, the water just babbling and swirling.
Yeah.
It feels like it's holding secrets, right?
Ancient secrets, yeah.
Now picture a machine, totally silent, just levitating. Not using fuel or brute force, but like powered by those same natural forces.
That's the world we're stepping into today.
Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive.
Today we're diving deep into Viktor Schauberger. He was an Austrian naturalist, an inventor. Really fascinating, often controversial figure.
His ideas about water, what he called energy water, and his quest to build flying discs using implosion, it flew in the face of conventional science.
Completely. So that's our mission today. We've gathered stuff from all over Reddit threads, academic papers like the General Science Journal, historical bits from Nexus magazine, even a documentary transcript.
Right. We want to unpack his unique take on this energy water and, of course, his work on these disc-shaped aircraft.
Prepare to have your ideas about physics, maybe even reality itself, kind of gently swirled around.
Yeah, re-examined. And we'll see how these ideas, the water and the flying discs, are actually really connected in his thinking.
It's all part of this bigger picture he had.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself, who was Viktor Schauberger, this rebel naturalist.
Well, he was born in 1885, came from a long line of foresters, actually, and he famously refused to go to university.
Really?
He thought it would, quote, corrupt his thinking. His family had this motto, faith in the silent forests, and that really defined how he learned by observing nature directly.
That's pretty bold, trusting your own eyes over the establishment.
Absolutely, and it led him to his core philosophy, comprehend and copy nature.
Comprehend and copy nature.
Okay, he really believed nature didn't work by rigid straight lines, but through these rhythmical back and forth processes. He saw all our machines then, and probably now, as unnatural.
Unnatural.
Because they push, they explode, they tear things apart. Nature, he thought, draws things in, it regenerates, it implodes. He even said physical reality is kind of an illusion, and we need to see the dynamic, living reality behind it.
Wow, that's a deep thought. So going from faith in the forests to these specific ideas, how did he start observing these rhythmical processes? Where did it begin?
It really started with water. He called it the blood of Mother Earth. And his early observations, they're just captivating.
Like what?
Well, he'd watch trout in mountain streams. They could hold perfectly still in a really violent current, or sometimes somehow flee upstream against gravity.
Upstream? How?
Exactly, like they were riding some invisible energy current. He also saw that these pristine mountain streams, they wouldn't freeze solid even when it was minus 30 Celsius.
Minus 30, that's incredibly cold.
Right, these weren't just weird things happening. To him, they were clues, big clues. He decided water held the greatest secret, and it was the carrier of life.
And that's where his whole energy water idea comes from, isn't it? It wasn't just plain H2O for him.
Not at all. He talked about living water, which he saw as completely different from the dead water we get from modern treatments, chlorine and filtering.
Good stuff from the tap.
Pretty much. He thought this living water had unique properties, essential for life. And he had this theory about the water cycle, that it wasn't just evaporation and rain, but it had this negentropic element.
Negentropic, meaning?
I mean, it gains order, it gains energy, it revitalizes itself. It doesn't just break down over time like most things tend to. It's like nature constantly refreshing water, making it this potent carrier of energy, maybe even information.
Water gaining order and energy. That really goes against the standard view, doesn't it? What's the main pushback from conventional science on that?
Well, yeah, the standard model treats water as, a relatively simple molecule, chemically speaking. Schauberger's ideas were much more complex, almost mystical to some.
But you mentioned modern echoes.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. There's modern research, like from Gerald Pollack, on what's called exclusion zone water, or EZ water.
EZ water.
Okay. Pollack describes it as a fourth phase of water. Not solid, liquid, or gas, but something else. It forms next to hydrophilic surfaces, things water likes to stick to.
And what's special about it?
It's highly structured, very ordered, it carries a negative charge, and it actually pushes out particles, creates this exclusion zone.
Huh. It sounds a lot like what Schauberger was describing, just with different words.
It really does, doesn't it? It suggests Schauberger was observing something real, even without the modern scientific toolkit or vocabulary.
Has this easy water stuff been confirmed?
Yeah, Pollack's findings have been replicated in labs around the world. Now, the exact why and how are still debated, but the phenomenon seems real. One source we looked at on Reddit actually mentioned scientists having cognitive dissonance about water being this complex.
Like they don't want to believe it.
Maybe. The same source even speculated that water might hold the key to global energy freedom. It's a powerful thought, connecting back to Schauberger.
Okay, so he wasn't just theorizing. He actually applied these water principles. The logging flumes are famous, right? How did he get heavy logs to float, sometimes even upstream?
It's amazing, really. He used his understanding of water's natural movement, its vortex dynamics, and crucially, temperature. He knew that cold, dense water has more carrying power.
Colder's better.
For carrying capacity, yes, according to him. His flumes weren't just straight channels. They mimicked the curves and shapes of natural streams. They created these gentle vortexes that guided the water and the logs, using the water's own energy. He could transport logs heavier than water with minimal effort.
So it wasn't brute force, it was about understanding and working with the water's flow.
Precisely. It showed that if you understand nature's principles, you can achieve things that seem impossible with conventional mechanics, and way more efficiently.
He also had ideas for big rivers, the Rhine and Danube. They ignored him mostly.
They did, yeah. His ideas were too unconventional. But he talked about a river generator concept. He believed a river naturally chews up its stones and swirls and bends, creating energy.
Generating electricity just by flowing.
A kind of pulsating direct current, yeah. An engineer named Olaf Alexanderson apparently measured something like this later in river bends. And Schauberger even patented a machine back in 1935.
What did it do?
It was meant to recreate spring water. It would clean, cool, vortex, and add minerals back into water to make it, living again, just like out of a natural spring.
And people are still working on this stuff today.
Absolutely. We see things like Bolebula revitalizers, Martin whirlers for drinking water, even hydrotherapy applications. There's a company, WaterEnergy, using a super vortexer based on his ideas to make denser ice for ice rinks saves energy.
Denser ice, how does that work?
By vortexing the water before freezing, it supposedly creates a more structured, denser ice that requires less energy to maintain. There are even attempts to use his principles for desalination.
Wow, it really shows his ideas weren't just out there. They have real-world legs.
Definitely. And, to touch on the more speculative side, again, that Reddit comment about water holding memory, linking it to things like homeopathy.
Yeah.
It just shows how his core ideas continue to spark these broader questions about what water really is and what it can do far beyond just H2O.
Okay, so this deep dive into water, this understanding of vortexes and energy, it seems like a natural leap for him to apply that to air, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
He saw parallels between how water moves and how air could move, if guided correctly.
And this leads us straight to the flying discs, the Repulsine.
Exactly, the Repulsine. That's the name that pops up in several sources, like the General Science Journal. These were his designs for discoid aircraft.
So flying saucers, basically.
But bisque-shaped, yeah. The idea wasn't propulsion in the way we normally think, like a rocket pushing exhaust. It was about ionizing the air and creating lift through vortexes.
How would that work, ionizing the air?
The core principle involved using very high-speed rotating surfaces made of specific metals. These would create powerful cyclonic vortexes, like mini tornadoes, and ionize the air within them, giving the air molecules an electrical charge.
Okay.
This ionization combined with the vortex would supposedly create a low-pressure zone above the disk and a high-pressure zone below, essentially pulling or sucking the craft upwards. He called it levitation.
So it's pulled, not pushed, like his trout analogy.
That's the concept. He talked about a trout turbine principle, this twisting form of oscillation in air or water that generates immense energy and levitation. The craft would be drawn forward, not propelled from behind. It's a total paradigm shift from explosion-based thrust.
It really is, using a controlled vortex to change the air itself. His patents mention an artificial thunderstorm.
Yes, from around 1937-38. He described creating this high-tension electrical field inside a specially shaped chamber. The idea was to transform the air itself into electrical energy, creating what he called a self-intensifying physical vacuum.
A physical vacuum.
A region of extremely low pressure, but perhaps more than just low pressure, maybe some kind of energetic state. This would create a powerful cyclonic upcurrent. The chamber, rotating incredibly fast, maybe 10,000 to 20,000 RPM.
Wow, that's fast.
Incredibly fast. And made of specially shaped copper components. He believed this process could energize air molecules, create electric charges, and generate subtle magnetic fields. He often used the term diamagnetism.
Diamagnetism. That's a real physical property, right? Where materials are slightly repelled by magnetic fields.
It is. Things like water and copper are diamagnetic. Schauberger seemed to believe he could harness or amplify this effect. He specifically chose inorganic silvered copper for parts of the chamber, likely for its diamagnetic properties and maybe its ability to handle the stresses and low pressures involved.
The level of detail in the materials and design, it suggests he wasn't just guessing, does it?
It really feels like he had a very specific process in mind based on his observations of nature, and this, of course, leads us to that really provocative connection, the UFO link.
Ah, yes. The claim that the flying saucers are diamagnetically propelled, that's a big statement.
It's huge, and separating fact from folklore here is tricky, obviously.
So how much is documented, Schauberger, and how much is speculation layered on top?
Well, it's a mix. The direct claim comes from secondary sources analyzing his work and potential connections, but some details are intriguing, like the mention of a light greenish hue seen around some low-flying UFOs.
A green glow.
Yeah, which proponents link to the spectral signature of burning or ionized copper, the very material Schauberger emphasized in his designs.
Okay, that's interesting.
And there's another claim that after 1947, the year of Roswell,
Right.
air samples taken in areas with lots of UFO sightings apparently showed high concentrations of copper particles, which supposedly weren't there before.
Seriously, copper particles in the air.
That's the claim. Now, we can't definitively say, aha, Schauberger's machine, but it feeds the narrative that something using principles similar to his might have been operating. The sheer radicalness of his propulsion concept puts it outside normal aerospace thinking.
So the idea aligns even if we can't prove it was his specific tech. And didn't one source mention multiple propulsion types based on his work?
Yes, the General Science Journal article analyzed his writings and patents and identified potentially 6 different concepts.
6? Like what?
2 seemed magnetic, maybe even involving superconductivity. 3 were more mechanical, using pressure gradients from ionization or exploding airflow effects like the Bernoulli principle or Coanda effect. That's how air sticks to a curved surface.
On an airplane wing, kind of?
Sort of, yeah. And also directed ion jets. And then there was a 6th, possibly using gyroscopic effects related to gravity and inertia.
That's a wide range. And the potential power, lifting hundreds of tons.
The calculations based on his principles suggested immense lifting potential at those high RPMs, yeah. Truly staggering numbers.
And his biomimicry wasn't just vortexes, right? He looked at fish shapes.
He did. He suggested copying the shapes of deep-sea fish for high-speed, even supersonic aircraft, which sounds odd until you maybe look at something like a modern stealth bomber.
Which definitely doesn't look like a conventional plane.
Not at all. It makes you wonder.
Okay, let's turn to his legacy. It's complex, involving World War II.
Yeah, a really dark period. He's apparently forced to work for the Waffen-SS under Himmler. They wanted him to develop secret weapon.
Using his implosion tech.
That's the story. He built versions of his machines, the Repulsator and Repulsine, based on these densifying forces of implosion, which he claimed were far more powerful than explosion.
More powerful than an explosion. That's quite a claim.
It is. And it highlights why regimes might have been so interested. But as you'd expect, much of that work, any prototypes, were classified, then confiscated by the Allies after the war.
Making it hard to know what he actually built or achieved, though.
Very hard. Documentation is scarce. And that secrecy, that difficulty, followed him to America later on.
The trip to Texas in 1958.
Yeah, he was approached by some American businessmen, Carl Gersheimer and Robert Donner. They were keen to develop his implosion ideas.
But it didn't go well, did it? It sounds heartbreaking.
It really does. There was a massive communication gap. His unique way of describing things, his terminology, Gersheimer apparently called it gobbledygook. Plus, Schauberger wasn't well. His health was failing.
So they couldn't understand each other.
Seemingly not effectively. And it ended with him signing this contract, which he later described as soul-destroying.
What did it make him do?
To get home to Austria, he had to sign away all rights to his past and future work, all his models, everything, and promise total silence on implosion technology forever.
Oh, that's brutal.
And the ultimate tragedy. He died just 5 days after getting back to Austria. He felt completely betrayed that his life's work was stolen.
Just 5 days. And what about that last Repulsine model he supposedly built around 1945? What happened to it?
It ended up in America, kind of lost for a while, then rediscovered in Texas by a researcher named Richard Feuerbund.
Did they ever test it?
They did, actually. At Hal Puthoff's Institute for Future Technologies, they noted it was well built, Good quality construction.
But did it work? Did it lift off?
No, it failed to produce any measurable lift. The conclusion was that key components were missing crucial catalysts, maybe other parts essential to the ionization or vortex generation process.
So you couldn't just build the shell, you needed his secret ingredients almost.
It seems that way. It wasn't just mechanics. It was about harnessing these subtle natural energies he understood intuitively. It highlights the difficulty in just replicating it from diagrams.
But his work didn't totally die with him. His son Walter tried to carry it on.
Yes, Walter Schauberger dedicated himself to trying to put his father's often empirical intuitive insights onto a more solid mathematical footing. He developed something called the Pythagoras-Kepler system, or PKS. Yeah, it involved things like hyperbolic funnels and egg-shaped curves, trying to find the mathematical principles behind the energy generation his father observed in natural forms and vortexes, trying to bridge that gap between intuition and scientific language.
So providing the framework his father perhaps lacked or didn't articulate conventionally.
Exactly. And maybe the best way to view Victor's legacy comes from his grandson, Georg Schauberger. He said his grandfather's work isn't a rigid blueprint, but an invitation to be inspired.
Inspired to do what?
To not just blindly copy, but to truly comprehend, copy, and cooperate with nature. To find sustainable ways forward. That feels like the core message he wanted to leave.
From those silent Austrian forests to these wild stories of green glows around UFOs, Viktor Schauberger definitely leaves us with some huge questions, doesn't he? About energy, about gravity, about how we even relate to the natural world.
Absolutely. His ideas on energy water, his pursuit of flying disks using implosion, they were dismissed as pseudoscience for so long, but they're still sparking interest, still inspiring people today.
So wrapping this up, what should you, our listener, take away from this deep dive?
Well, consider this. What if Schauberger was even partially right? What if the real key to global energy freedom does lie hidden in water's properties, waiting to be understood?
And what if his implosion tech really was potentially more powerful than explosive forces, as he claimed?
It makes you wonder, what other profound secrets might nature hold? Secrets we're overlooking just because they don't fit our current scientific boxes? What could we achieve if we stopped trying to just dominate nature and instead tried to truly comprehend and copy it?